Hi everybody, welcome to lesson 2.2, creating a grid inside your Flipgrid account. For an easy definition, a grid is considered, I would consider like a class. So you can create multiple topics or questions inside of each grid. You'll see here on my account, across the top here, the default is my grids. So I've got a couple listed here. In this one, the R's, the audio video tools for the classroom, and then a previous class that I've used this for the continuing ed classes. So a grid, for all intents and purposes, is a class or a group of specific people that you want. I would not create one grid for all of my classes if I were you, because then when people come to respond, they could do that, and you'll have everybody on one grid. Now you could do, if you are say like a elementary teacher and you teach multiple subjects, or you wanted to use it that way, then maybe you would create like a math grid, a science grid, a reading grid, to do it that way. I would create, if I was taught the same thing multiple times, I would create multiple grids for each class. You can do one grid and then each topic create individual topics. I think it's a little easier to organize if you create a grid for each class. So in creating that grid, it's real simple. There's a button right here for add new grids. We're going to do that. You're going to name your grid there. It gives you some examples, right? Let's say, call this our audio video test grid. And then you have to select the type of grid that this is. I would suggest that you choose school email. That lets anybody who has that same school email as that you're using. So for us, usd264.org, it gives them access to your grid. You can also add multiple school emails. So for example, in the grid that we have for this class, we have the 264.org, but we also have several people from outside the district taking the class. So I added their school emails as well, so they can respond. You can also use student IDs if you have a system that you can integrate the student ID number, or the students do that. That's less common. And then if you want a public grid, or if you're doing this with like a PLC from lots of people all over the place, you can put that there. Keep in mind that if the grid's public, that anyone has access to it that has your Flipgrid code. So just be aware of that. It's a little harder to regulate who can come in and put a video response in that way. So we'll do school email on this one. And then you can have your Flipgrid code. It automatically generates one for you for this grid, and you can customize it here in the back if you want to. I usually just leave it that way. So we'll create that grid. You'll see here it automatically defaults and puts in my email. But if I wanted to add any other school email, so other people could access it, you could do that and put that there. Okay, we'll go ahead. We've got the grid here if people access it, but we're going to go ahead and go to our grid. Okay, and now we have some options for customizing that grid. So you see it's got the flip code to this grid. I can add a co-pilot, meaning I can add another teacher or someone who can moderate this. It'll be very similar to adding a co-teacher in Google Classroom. They can add topics or do that. So if you co-teach with someone or you want somebody to be part of that. Over here, the biggest editing options are the edit pencil. So we can come in here and there's our name, there's our code, but then there's some more specific things as we get down here further. You can get an email notification when anybody adds topics, new videos are added to topics. So you might want to decide what you want to do with that. If you do have that on, every time a student submits a video to one of your topic questions, you're going to get an email. So you may want to turn that off if you know you're just going to go look at it anyway, or your email inbox will get filled up pretty quickly. You can have students download their videos. I think that's perfectly fine. There's not a reason for that. Captions, which is good, especially for accessibility, maybe hearing impaired, or somebody that wants to read those. Same thing here with your options on receive email notifications when the new topics are created. I don't necessarily turn that on because then students' inbox will get flooded every time you make a new question. And then you can also upgrade. So the default, I've got a little picture here, but you can then default, you can add your own custom image then if you want to the header of the picture. So maybe we'll change that. We'll just change it to this sort of graffiti image. There's also some options here: people, nature. We'll do a cat with glasses, and then we'll update the grid. So now those are shared or changed there. So that's creating your grid. And again, remember, a grid is like a class. It has multiple topics or contains multiple questions inside of it. The grid is not the actual response tool itself. It's like the place that stores all of your questions. So that's how to create a grid and do some editing inside that grid. Thanks.